Hi, this is going to be on Wilfred Owen's Disabled. Um, I'll read it now. It's about a disabled soldier having come back from the war. He sat in a wheelchair, waiting for dark, and shivered in his ghastly suit of gray, legless, sewn short of the elbow. Through the park, voices of boys rang saddeningly like a hymn. Voices of play and pleasure after day, till gathering sleep had mothered them from him. About this time, town used to swing so gay when glow lamps budded in the light blue trees, and girls glanced lovelier as the air grew dim. In old times, before he threw away his knees, now he will never feel again how slim girls' waists are, how warm their supple hands. All of them touch him now like some queer disease. There was an artist silly for his face for it was younger than his youth last year. Now he is old, his back will never brace, he's lost his color very far from here, poured it down shell holes till the veins ran dry, and half his lifetime lapsed in the hot race, and leap of purple spurted from his thigh. One time he liked the blood smear down his leg. After the matches carried shoulder high was after football when he drunk a peg. He thought he'd better join. He wonders why. Someone had said he looked like a god in kilts. That's why. And maybe, too, to please his Meg. Aye, that was it. To please the giddy jilts. He asked to join. He didn't have to beg. Smiling, they wrote his lie. Aged 19 years. Germans he scarcely thought of, all their guilts, and Austrias did not move him. And no fears of fear came yet. He thought of jeweled hilts, for daggers and plaid socks, of smart salutes and care of arms and leave and pay arrears and spirit de corps and hints for young recruits. And soon he was drafted out with drums and cheers. Some cheered him home, but not as the crowds cheer goal. Only a solemn man who bought him fruits thanked him and inquired about his soul. Now he will spend a few sick years in institutes and do what things the rules consider wise, and take whatever pity they may dole. Tonight he noticed how the women's eyes passed from him to the strong men that were whole. How cold and late it is, why don't they come and put him into bed? Why don't they come? All right. This is telling, presenting an image really of a soldier who's been grievously wounded in World War One. I think in World War One, was a particularly brutal war, especially for the time. And he was there when a mortar went off, right? And boy, that first image we get, right, is almost a ghoulish horror kind of image, right? He sat in a wheelchair waiting for dark, and boy, what a also a very lonesome image, right? To sit there and wait, we're just waiting for dark. Again, this is a 18 to 22-year-old kid, right? Who's this, right? He sat in the wheelchair waiting for dark and shivered in his ghastly suit of gray. That adverb there, ghastly, right? And suit of gray, and presented almost as a skeletal or again a goblin or a ghoulish kind of image. Legless, sewn short at the elbow, so again his legs are gone. He's lost at least half of one of his arms. And then listening to the kids play outside. Again, he's in some sort of convalescent home here, and he's sort of out on the porch in this wheelchair, and he's obviously overlooking some sort of schoolyard or something where the kids play at recess. Voices of boys rang saddening like a hymn, voices of play and pleasure after day, till gathering sleep had mothered them from him. And again, it was not that long ago at all. He was one of those boys out, playing in that place, and till the gathering, they play there until it gets dark, and the sleep mothers them from that they need to be mothered from him. And again, that is a common experience of homecoming soldiers from combat, is they feel very disconnected from their families and from their culture, and their neighbors. They've gone through this thing. They've seen things. They also may have done things that they never thought they would, and it's can be a sort of isolating experience, and they have a lot of trouble kind of reintegrating into the way things were. They often find the life meaningless and dull and boring, when they come home. And in this case, I don't know that that's necessarily happening. I think he's just so traumatized and broken, literally, physically and mentally broken, that he has to be pining over just what he'd give to go back and be that age again and maybe take another shot at life. About this town, the town used to swing so gay, and we get a lot of beautiful lyrical, sort of romantic poetry, good sort of imagery here. About this time, the town used to swing so gay when glow lamps budded in the light blue trees, and girls glanced lovelier as the air grew dim. And all in the old times before he threw away his knees. And again, that's just sort of almost tossed off that line, right? Threw away his knees. He did join, when he was too young, chasing glory. But again, the glow lamps budding in the trees and the girls lovely. And then you get the almost crushingly sad last two lines of the stanza. Three, I guess. Now he will never feel again how slim girls' waists are and how warm their subtle hands. Boy, that's just such a beautiful, simple image. And again, very common for soldiers. They don't often. Again, you can get a group of soldiers, in between, sort of battles or sitting, talking, as they're marching, and they're talking about girls. It also often gets very kind of crude and profane, right? They're talking about sex and, the various girls, body parts involved in their desire sexually, and often being, kind of, again, sort of crude and about it. But it seems like often in war literature, especially in private moments, the traumatized soldier, it's almost like you don't get a lot of sexual fantasies. What you so often get are the sort of sex, the romance, the when it's still all possible. Sort of things, right? Before the kiss even happens, right? And again, he will never feel again how slim girls' waists are. What a simple, but beautiful and again crushingly sad thing for this boy to be remembering, or how warm their subtle hands. Again, just holding a girl's hand is what he's thinking of. Putting his arm around the girl, it's not even right, the act. And now all of them touch him like some queer disease. And boy, what a, and again, we are going to learn in the very next stanza here, he was an exceptionally good-looking young man. The girls all liked him, and now, boy, it's only been a couple of years, and he's broken, and it is completely different. Now they look at him like some queer, like something strange and foreign and grotesque. Again, disease is something that is revolting. That entices disgust in us, sort of, right? Just naturally. That's our evolutionary process sort of kicking into gear here. You need to. Diseases are often contagious, so even if they're not, it's just your natural sort of instinct to sort of, be a bit revolted by it. And boy, that is the opposite of what he wants. This young man wants girls to look at him like, and the opposite of what the way they were looking at him just a year ago, even. There was an artist silly for his face, for it was younger than his youth last year. So he wasn't only young, he looked exceptionally young, right? And then he lost his color far from here, his vitality, his looks, right? Poured it down the shell holes till the veins ran dry, and half his lifetime lapsed in a hot race, and the leap of purple spurted from his thigh. Again, he's describing, which I'm sure he's reliving over and over and over again, that moment where the mortar goes off, the bomb goes off, and his legs get blown apart, and again, the leap of purple spurting from his thigh is almost more chilling than if he really took his time and gave you all kinds of gory details about the blood, the blood spurting and the bones sticking out, right, and seeing his own muscles under his skin and all that. And somehow the leap of purple spurting from his thigh, somehow, really kind of that packs a punch there. And even, he lost his color, poured his color down the shell holes till the end. Seeing the shell holes only, and I think he has to have been a little bit there, thinking of if some of you've read the Odyssey, Homer, and that when Odysseus wants to find the ghost of Achilles and sort of and the Greek underworld. What you do is you slay an animal, like a sheep or a goat, and pour the blood as an offering to the gods into a hole, into little shallow pits, and then you can the sort of ghosts that are almost drifting around like a fogs or clouds sort of animate and become much more real, and so you can sort of speak to them once you pour the warm blood into the hole. And I have almost as if some grotesque sort of offering his life goes, it just drains down into those mortar holes. One time he liked a blood smear down his leg. And again, you just a bit of a long stance there. I won't do it all, but he joined up to impress a girl, as we learned, right? And he thought he'd look like people said he looked like a god in that uniform, and he didn't know anything about it. He didn't join up for any good reasons. He didn't know anything about the Germans or their guilt or anything else. But he just saw those recruitment posters and thought he'd look handsome in a uniform. The girls all seemed to like the men in uniform. And glory, of the military. He went, so he went out, almost like he got drunk, same way somebody get a tattoo or something, without really thinking much about it. And they cheered him out with drums as he left. And again, they wrote his lie, right? Smiling, they wrote his lie, aged 19 years. So he wasn't even 19 years old when he joined. He was at 17, 18, and he already said he looked young for his age even then, even younger than he was, which means they never even asked how old he was. And again, smiling, they wrote his lie. Almost presented as almost that's what the devil does when he's getting you to sign the deed and to sign away your soul, right? Sort of sits there and smiles as you're doing it. And that's kind of how Owen seems to be picturing the recruiters there. And then some cheered him home, but not many, right? Just an old man who inquired about his soul. Then this last stanza really is sort of devastating. Now he will spend a few sick years in institutes. He probably doesn't have that much longer to live at all. And do what things the rules consider wise. He's just going to be at the mercy of these places and do what they tell him to do. He can't even wheel himself around in that place, right? He's only got one full arm. And no legs, and take whatever pity they may dole. And again, pity would be the last thing a young man wants, right? Young men are supposed to be strong and vibrant and masculine and attractive, and he's now the opposite of that, which he gets right to. Right tonight, he noticed how the women's eyes passed from him to the strong men who were whole. And boy, again, all the girls who used to be looking at him are never going to again. And then these last two lines, how cold and late it is, why don't they come? And put them into bed, why don't they come? And boy, why don't they come for him? They've forgotten about him. He's out on the porch. They're probably inside busy with the other soldiers. They just forgot. And he's easy to be forgotten about now. And very common, the soldier, after he's given everything, is often almost no society, including our own, by the way. VFW has, not VFW, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm blanking on this, but our the hospitals are supposed to take care of our soldiers has been a mess forever through not just Trump. Obama wasn't able to fix it. They were put a very good man in charge, couldn't fix it. Nobody seems to be able to fix this thing. It's always antiquated. Soldiers have to wait forever to get even mental health appointments or anything else. It's always sort of been like that. And it, in every society seems once they've done their duty, they do get forgotten about. And here he's the ultimate being forgotten about, having suffered everything. Right? I mean, he literally lost much of his body. And again, why don't they come and put him to bed? Why don't they come? It's being forgotten about as he's out there, as it's getting dark. By the way, his whole world is getting dark. Also, put him into bed. Sleep will come up again in Owen's poetry, and it does seem to be the thing soldiers are always sort of yearning, pining for, and which they often have trouble getting. And even when they do fall asleep, they're often woken up by nightmares, right? Anyway, that is Disabled by Wilfred Owen.